The Gemara.
In the Gemara?
It's in the Gemara. If it's the Amoraim or Tanaim, I don't remember who quotes it. We're Perek Zayin, the 7th Perek. I just remind everyone, Haman, with the big change, we saw another Na'afochu in the Megillah. We've seen a whole bunch of them. The Na'afochu, we said, was Esther's first party that made the king suspicious. Suspicious of many, many, many different things, including the kesher between Haman and Esther, but it seems even more so how powerful Haman has actually become. And then he gets his proof, asking Haman what should be done to the one who wants to save, who the king wants to honor. And obviously thinking of himself, he says some crazy things. And the king is now clear to him that Haman has lost it and is attempting either to assassinate him or is planning to usurp him or come after him. Whatever it is, he's being threatened now by the person who he put in the place to save him. And so the second party is a completely different atmosphere than the first one. And the king is completely open to hear Esther's accusations. So that's what we see here in chapter 7, verse 3. Vatan Esther HaMalka, Esther says, Vatomar, she says, Im matzati chen be'einecha, if I found favor in your eyes, HaMelech, V'im al HaMelech tov, and it is good in the king's eyes, we're going to relate to that in a minute, Tinaten li nafshi b'sheilati, ve'ami b'kashati. Will you give me my, we said, my life, my soul, with my request, with my question, and my nation with my request. Ki nimkarnu, for we have been sold, me and my people, to destroy and kill and destroy. Another word for destroy. Annihilate, that's a good word. And if it was just being sold as slaves and maidservants, I would have been quiet. Of course, I wouldn't have said a word. Because it's not worth bothering the king or causing the king to lose money over such triflings as a whole nation sold to slavery. I wouldn't have said a thing about that. Only because we are facing destruction and annihilation, that's why I'm bothering the king. So the king answers. I'm going to read it out just to see this part. Vayomer HaMelech Achashverosh, Vayomer le'Esther HaMalka. Just a little point here. It says twice Vayomer. It's interesting in verse 5. Vayomer HaMelech Achashverosh, Vayomer le'Esther HaMalka. The king said, and he says to Esther the queen. So everyone else was the first. So the Malbim points out a very textual pshat answer, and he says, the king looks at everyone who's there, who are the servants and the other people. Only him, Haman, and right. But there are servants and people who serve and guards. He says, the king looks at the guy and says, "Hey, what is this?" And then no one answers him. And then he turns to Esther and he says, "Mi uzeh ve'ezehu." So that sort of explains the double vayomers that we got here in verse Hey. Okay? And then he says, "Mi uzeh ve'ezehu asher melao libo la'asot ken." Who could have done such a thing? Who is thinking such a thing? And Esther says, "Tomer Esther ish tsar ve'oyev," a wicked and evil man, our enemy. Haman hara hazeh, this evil Haman. And Haman is nivat, frightened, scared, terrified from the king and the queen. The king gets up in his anger from mishteh yayin, from the feast, to Ginat Bitan, and he heads towards the garden of the house. And Haman stands to beg for his life.
I have a question. Regarding when we're reading the Megillah, we're hearing the name Haman, we say boo and use all these things. How come we do that instead of everybody in the Kehillah loudly yelling, Yamach Shemo?
Well, first of all, you're not supposed to talk in between. That's an interesting point. You're not supposed to say. You're in the middle of reading a Megillah. You have to hear every word. You're not supposed to a hefsek.
When we still.
We yell Haman.
When someone says Haman, we say
but you say Haman when you're reading the Megillah. You're not supposed to say anything.
Megillah, doing something else when we're saying boo.
We never say boo except when we're reading the Megillah. Okay, if you would say boo every time I would say Haman here, we would never get anywhere.
Not during the Megillah, during something else. I'm mistaken. It's not during the Megillah.
It is during the Megillah. That's when we say boo. You were mistaken. You were correct. Well, you shouldn't say boo either. You should just go, that's why there's a grogger, right? Where you go, and you take pans and smash pans and do. You shouldn't be, or you go, but you shouldn't be saying any words, which are hefsek. That's why we don't say machshmo. Hefsek is when you stop something you're in the middle of, like a bracha. When you're in the middle of a bracha, you're not allowed to stop. You're saying Shmon Esrei. Quick thing about Shmon Esrei, when Bezrat Hashem, when you guys have kids, if you have kids, and your kids are bothering in the middle of davening, in the middle of Shmon Esrei, as is one to do, that's good. You could do that. You could also take them and remove them from the shul, but you shouldn't say anything. It's better to get up, take your kid and throw him over your shoulder and run out of the shul and continue your davening outside instead of saying him, just wait till we're finished. I told you 100 times.
When I was in Tekoa about 5 months ago, your youngest son, during the Shemona Esrei, we were all doing Marv. Your youngest son was pulling at my trouser leg because he didn't know where you were. He was asking me where you were.
And
Good
job. Well, so ignoring is fine, but if when the kid starts crying or yelling or something and bothering everyone in shul, you take him out. You know, when a hefsek, speaking in the middle is a hefsek. That's why in the middle of the Megillah we shouldn't be saying anything. Could be making a lot of noise other ways, but there are other problems with making a lot of noise. Anyway, Tov, Hamelech kam mechamato, he gets up, he's angry, and Haman gets to beg for his life from Esther HaMelkah, which is a fascinating point that I never really put my mind to, and I thought about it this time, and we'll talk about it a little bit. He goes to ask from Esther. What kind of warped mind is going to ask from Esther? She's the one who just pointed at him and said, Ish tsar ve'oyev, this guy is an enemy. He wants to kill me and all my people. The king goes out, and she goes to beg from Esther. Esther just said, so you could say who else, or it's Bemet, who else? The king's not there. Who else? But how nuts do you have to be to do that? So, but let's see. We'll see that when we go over it. He sees that there's no hope from the king. The king returns from the garden of the house, to the place where the feast is. Haman has fallen on the bed that Esther is on. Now, we have to remember they ate on beds. They feasted on beds. In other words, it's not a sleeping bed. It is the bed that they sit on, in a sense, right? As the Roman feasts are always portrayed, like this, right, with the grapes and going like this. That's what? A sofa, right? So it's a kind of sofa, which is really where we're going to meet this deal in Pesach, right? On Pesach, when we do asava, that's really why we do asava. Ad kedei kach, that there's one shita, if I remember correctly, it's the Ravya, who says you don't have to do it anymore. There's no asava anymore. It's a unique shita. It's not for halacha. But he says, listen, we don't eat that way anymore. The reason there's asava is because that's the way rich people used to sit, and the rich people and the powerful people, they would sit in these big feasts and they would sit like that. But the Ravya says, we don't sit like that anymore. It's not comfortable to sit like that. No more asava. That's what he says. No one accepts him for halacha, except I guess maybe his children did and his community. But we don't do that. But this picture is Esther is lying on the bed and Haman falls on that bed at her feet, probably to request but the picture is still one that has a hint to all kinds of things that are improper. Okay? And that's what the king sees, because the king, already in his thought process and already thinking, he could think anything at all about Haman at this point. You told him Haman is, I was going to say, as a mass murderer, he'd believe it. He actually is a mass murderer. But if you said anything else, if he also steals wallets from little people, right, if he's a pickpocket, anything you would say about Haman would probably be believable what they said. Exactly.
Dealing scheme.
Anything you want, he would believe. But to see Haman falling on Esther's bed, right? So the king says, well, we went too far off road. Okay, to take my queen, lichbosh, there's a machloket between the parshanim, if it means actually to take her in as a wife, or to take her in sexual terms, or to try to kill her, which is another possible attempt that he was trying to do, to try to kill the queen as I'm here. And then he goes back and connects to Chazal that Memuchan is Haman. You killed my prior king. You got rid of Vashti. Now you're getting rid of Esther. Anyone, there are all kinds of things you could throw in here. Whatever it is, it's not good for the king. these words left the king's lips. Upnei Haman chafu. Now, chafu is an interesting term that no one knows exactly what it means. Chafu. And there are different. One is that his face fell. Okay, his face fell. In other words, you went, no. But then chafu is a strange word. So chafu apparently comes from being covered. And it's very interesting. There's a Persian custom, the Malbim brings, and others bring also, that there was a Persian custom that those who were angered the king cannot see his face anymore. And they would cover their face. Okay, now obviously, we know in other things that was executions, right? Sometimes they would cover their faces. So I imagine once you're not in good speaking terms with the kings, execution is not so far in the future from your future, probably. If anyone knew how to tell the future, you're probably on the wrong path. So some of the Perushim here say they actually covered his head. They took like a bag or whatever, I guess a box or whatever, or something, or linen or something. They covered his head. They covered his face. That's Pnei Haman chafu. Okay, it was covered. You know. And then we get Charvona, the first individual we meet with a name since Perek Aleph, if I'm not mistaken. No, Bet, thank you, Bet. We have Shashgez and Haggai, that's correct. The first servant of the king who we hear by name since Perek Bet. Vayomer Charvona, Echad min asarisim lifnei hamelech. Charvona, one of the eunuchs of before the king. Hey, here's the tree that Haman made for Mordechai, who said good things about the king. It's standing in Haman's house, 50 cubits high.
And he thought that was going to be used for him.
Hint. The king says, hang him on there. They hang Haman on the tree that he prepared for Mordechai, and the king's anger abated. As I say, every year in the Megillah, when we hear the Megillah, everyone's like, yay. Baruch Hashem, yay, clap your hands, the story, the evil man is over.
Apparently that doesn't mean the Jewish people are saved.
That's Perek Chet. That's what we're going to see when we get to the next half of our shir. So, but let's go back here.
Once someone died, the Jews were saved.
That's what everyone thinks. That's what everyone feels. It's sort of the ebb of the Megillah. If you have a feel of the music of the Megillah,
why not?
That's really what you feel.
His decree, since he knew he was tricked. Maybe all the stuff he did was also a trick on him. Who knows? Who are they attacking? Are you sure they're like he literally sent a message. Yud Gimel Adar.
Someone's going to be attacked. Right? You're leading with the Malbim, correct?
The decrees are already sent to the provinces.
But he sent it. They have it. All the provinces have the name. They have the Jewish name there. They just have to open it. But he's going to have to do something about it. But you're right. At the moment, according to the Malbim, no one knows what's going to happen there.
And nobody and Akash doesn't even know if it's going to be on him.
It's going to be what on him?
The attack.
Oh, that's correct also. That's another thing. The Malbim actually mentions that suddenly the king says, he set out letters, and what's written in the letters, who knows what's written? Who's going to be attacked? Maybe I myself am going to be. That's another point and interesting. The Malbim mentions that. But let's go back for a minute, okay? First of all, the Malbim has a very interesting statement where he says Esther is always talking about her and her people, right? Tinateni nafshi ve'ami. Ani ve'ami. And the Malbim says, possibly, in a very interesting sense, I'll read it to you guys. He says, Ki nimkarnu, ta'ana shnei ta'anot. She says two ta'ana, help me, two, there's got to be a good word for a ta'ana. In court, you give a...
testimony.
No, not testimony. I say something and you say something. So it's not a rebuttal. When we both say our state, our argument, maybe our argument.
What word? Tana?
I'm talking about Tana, yeah. An argument. So there are two arguments that she makes on her behalf. Okay, the first she says, "Ikara mechira hayta ba'avura." I'll read it and then translate it. Sheikar machshevet Haman haya la'abed ota ve'al ידי זה מצא עלילה על אמה, כדי שאחר כך יוכל להתגולל עליה, לומר שהיא מבני תמותה ויהרוג גם אותה. The Malbim says a fascinating thing, which is actually really interesting when you think about why Haman actually did the Gzera. he says that Esther says the whole reason that Haman wants to kill the Jews is to kill me. The whole plot, this is what she says to the king. This is not true in her eyes, but the whole reason, he said, the whole idea of killing, Nimkarnu ani ve'ami. Really, I'm the focus of this whole plot. He wants to kill everyone so that he could dispose of me. Now, why does Esther have to say such a strange thing? You have to understand the thinking of the king, and this is important.
The chutzpah of Haman to think that he could go and kill the king's queen.
Yeah, but why does she say that? Why? I mean, it's bad enough that he's going to kill the whole nation. Why does she have to put it on herself? He's going to kill the whole nation for me. Because really he wants to kill me, so because I'm a Jew, and it's like sort of roundabout. What's the point? We have to remember, Achashverosh is not a Jew lover. Even in our explanation, okay, not even going the Malbim where it says he was such a great guy. So we don't know what he is to a Jew. He doesn't know, we don't know, there has not been any connection between Achashverosh and the Jews per se as Jews. Besides Mordechai, who did a good thing, he knows he's a Jew.
He's indifferent.
He's indifferent. But indifferent in this sense means this is exactly the point where it's dangerous to be indifferent. You raising your hand? It's a dangerous point. In other words, the king hears this, and Esther realizes that if she says he's going to kill all the Jews, okay. The Jews are dangerous. Haman explained to him that they're dangerous. In other words, she realizes the king is really indifferent about this, and he may not do anything. Even to Haman, the way to get the king angry at Haman is always the king. He's going to kill me, your loved one. Me, your queen, who you came after your Vashti trauma, and suddenly you found someone who you could do. He's trying to kill me, now he's trying to kill me. Or again, as we said about Memuchan, she has to make it personal. The king doesn't work in truth and justice. These are not the terms Achashverosh uses. He uses the terms, what do I get out of it? How does this help me? How does it affect me? The Malbim points out that this is the way Esther is pulling him into this statement. In other words, for us it's simple. If I would say, listen, this guy's a maniac, a genocidal, he's crazy, he's going to try to kill everyone. That would make us do something, I would hope. But she realizes that that's not enough. She has to say, Nimkarnu ani ve'ami. And according to the Malbim, it's really Nimkarnu ani. I've been, me, derech hagav, my people, to get me. The people are just a reason to get to the king. Okay, it's a fascinating explanation. The other thing he says, of course, is connected to what we said before about the trick of that we've been sold to kill and not to slaves. That's the whole tricking part. Well, let's not go into that now. That we dealt with before. Okay, that's the other thing the Malbim says. This other statement that Esther says. But I think on that point, it's interesting to see that Esther doesn't underestimate the king. She understands exactly who she's dealing with. And that will also lead us to understand that the fact that Haman is killed, in the king's eyes, he saves his queen, and he gets rid of a threat, which was Haman threatening him. But the Jews aren't part of the equation here. And that's why, as we said, the story is over at the end of chapter 7. Oh, Haman is dead. The Jews are still in grave, grave danger. It didn't work. She was trying, she said, to get rid of Haman, she needed to use the king, her people, to see the danger she was in. But this still has not moved the king to change the decree. As we'll see in a minute, it doesn't change. Anyway, Tov. So let's go on. So what I wanted to say, which is interesting, right? She goes to the queen. He goes to the queen to try to beg for mercy. Now we said the king's he's absent. He's not there. He left. So who's left? The queen. So there are different perushim. One that Ibn Yichya, I think, is an interesting question. I don't know if we could say this on record in the 21st century. But he says, women are merciful. Women are compassionate. He says there's no chance with the king, but a woman is compassionate. If I sit on my knees and beg, maybe she'll have mercy for me. And I think that's definitely a legitimate statement of why he's not even trying with the king and he's trying with Esther. But I think there may be a deeper statement here and something that the Megillah may be teaching us also. He has a misconception about the Jews, about Jews bichlal. His conception of the Jews, I'd say, maybe have a Christian side to it. Not that I understand anything about Christianity, but Jews are always merciful. Jews are always there, compassionate. They're always there to. They're always, in a sense, they have a. That's right. Try to say that the rachamim in Judaism is the major thing, and that's not incorrect. But Judaism always also has din, also has justice. And this issue is a huge issue in the Megillah Bichlal that will come later in the war also. Okay, in the war against the Jews, when they'll fight the battle in the next chapter against their enemies. Why couldn't they just leave them alone? Why couldn't Mordechai put out, that you're not allowed to do it, or some kind of thing where the Jews would be saved? Why do they have to go and kill all their enemies? It's something that's bothered modern thinkers more, I must say. Ad kedei kach, that one of my children came home and said, that's the reason we fast on Tanit Esther tomorrow. The reason we fast for Tanit Esther is because we're sorry we had to go and kill all these people. I think that is, until I see that in someone respectable, I will think that's not correct. I haven't seen it anywhere. I had seen it once. You know where one thing I saw it? When I was reading, going through different Perushim in the Megillah, and I just opened something up, and I saw a Reform rabbi, a female reformer. That's what she said. That was her explanation of the Megillah. I've never seen it in, that's what she said. She said, the reason for the fast is because we're all so sorry for killing all these poor other people. We had to resort to violence.
What?
And I think, one second. I think this may be Haman's feeling also. The Jews are always looking for compassion. They're always weak, in a sense. There's a weakness to the Jews that will serve his purpose, in this sense. Now, that weakness is a strength very often. It's true. The compassion we have and the ability to forgive, these are great, great ma'alot that we come before Hashem every Yom Kippur and ask for. But as Chazal say, anyone who thinks that Hashem is a vatran means someone who just gives in, then his yivatru ma'oi, the Gemara says, his stomach will give in. Hashem doesn't just give in. There is justice in the world. To not understand justice is a very, very dangerous misunderstanding of religion. Religion and Hashem demands justice. Don't mix up the compassion with justice. They go together. Often, compassion is at its fullest through justice. But when they don't work, don't mix in your compassion in justice. That's very, very powerfully, the Torah says it again and again. You cannot take a poor person and mistrue justice because he's poor, because he's yatom, he doesn't have a father. No, justice has to be done. And Esther, in this sense, has no mercy on Haman, as she shouldn't, and does not save him. I'm just saying this idea of I think again, I'm just thinking Haman picks up what this rabbi, this Reform rabbi said now. No, I'm saying it's the same. It exists in the Judaic thinking that we always must forgive, that we almost must accept. There are boundaries to Judaism, and only through boundaries can justice be formed. That's why Hashem wanted to break the world in Rachamim, and he couldn't make it Rachamim. Shitefimat midat adin. He added the justice, or now we'd say din, justice. I'd say put it in justice. It's not the right word, but there may be a better word. Compassion and justice together. That's what you need. You can't have just justice without compassion, because that world is a world with no heart.
Balance.
You need a balance between the two. And Esther, I think, in this sense, is exactly holding the balance here. Now, Haman, he's not stupid, Haman, right? And he's not. He's saying something when he goes to the queen. Not only that she's a woman. He's talking to the feminine side of Judaism, which is a real side, an important one. But there's another side. And the other side, it demands justice. And that we cannot forget. It's this important idea that we'll see again as the war comes, that Mordechai understands this very, very well. So, anyway, that's my explanation of why he thought he could go to the queen. Why there may be a derech through there, not being a queen as much as being a Jew. In other words, which is fascinating, right? He hates the Jews, but he thinks that he can find not justice, he can find compassion there. Tov. Anyway, Tov. So let's go on. It doesn't work. The king comes back. He says what he says. Charvona. Charvona is the wonderful opportunist of the Megillah. Okay? There are fascinating midrashim about Charvona. What exactly he was and what was his job. So, the Malbim says, later he's going to say, that Charvona, well, we'll see inside. We'll start off with the Torah Tmima. The Torah Tmima says that Charvona was part of Haman's posse. He was part of his advisors. He was involved with Haman. He was there. And when Haman was getting stronger and stronger, he was with Haman. The minute the power shifts, Charvona flips on Haman. Now it's very powerful, right? Why do we think that he was part of the posse? Because how does he know about the tree? Oh, the tree that he prepared for. No one knows about this tree. Remember, this is all happening. Like this is new stuff. This is going on. He's in the palace. How exactly does he know about everything going on? These things are happening. Boom, 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 boom. How does so the Torah Tmima says he knows because he was part of that. But he suddenly realizes, sinking ship. We're out of here. I'm going to now flip over to the other side. But what? Charvona. Right. But Charvona in this sense is exactly what Esther and Mordechai are trying to do. This is what Esther did. When Esther flipped the power, when she flipped Haman and made him lose favor in the eyes of the king, then everyone around starts smelling blood. And everyone around jumps ship and now realizes, okay, where is it better to put my stakes?
The kings.
No, not the kings.
The Jews?
Yeah, the Jews.
Yeah.
Esther, the Jews. I'm going to put my stakes there. And this is a powerful statement in politics bichlal. Okay, in politics bichlal, you never know. You never know who is going to be joining you and who is not going to be joining you. But what you can know, and this we'll see also very soon in the next chapter, that the way to draw powerful people to you is to show power. This is an interesting thing. Some people think that when you want to draw people to you, you have to be miskin. You have to be weak, miserable, needing of help. No, a better word. Vulnerable. That's what people think. Oh, once I'll be vulnerable and everyone will love me and come to help me, which a little bit is how the world is talking nowadays. But mostly, the world doesn't really. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. The vulnerability on the high road and morality, maybe it should work, but in politics, in international politics, even in politics within a state, power is what really pulls people to them. If you're powerless, why should I be part of you? I don't want to be dragged into you. What do you give me? What do I get from you? But when I have power, then maybe it's worthwhile joining you. And this is exactly Charvona thinking. You have to see Charvona thinking this out right now. Charvona, Torah Tamima, was part of Haman's Pasi. And now he has to decide what's the right decision to do. So suddenly Charvona comes up and says this. Yeah.
Don't we say at the ending epilogue poetry
Of Shoshanat Yaakov.
Yeah, we say
V'gam Charvona Zachur Latov. Yafe. So we sing it, right? We don't sing it, but at the very end of Shoshanat Yaakov, that we'll say, or right, we're going to say V'gam Charvona Zachur Latov. And I think this statement is a very powerful statement. V'gam Charvona Zachur Latov. Also, even Charvona, I'll say, not only also, even Charvona is a better translation, is also remembered for good. V'gam, right, we say, Baruch Mordechai, Brucha Esther, and even, right, Mordechai is blessed, Esther is blessed, and even Charvona, this Charvona we met now, even he, we remembered him for good.
There's some portion that say that he was Eliyahu.
Eliyahu Hanavi. Okay, that would be that the person who goes right on the right spot, the right time, and says the right word, right? That would be the sense. But I'll say on the Eliyahu Hanavi bench. But I'm going to say this. I think in the way I explained it, it makes us rethink our values. And in the political realm, we don't use you can't use. I'm saying something that is that meets us. I think it was the Megillah is teaching us also. We'll talk about it after Purim a little bit also, about what the deep teachings of the Megillah are for a nation. But the statement here is, even Charvona is remembered for good. Now he did it, it was all interest for himself. He doesn't like the Jews, he doesn't love the Jews, he doesn't care about the Jews, Charvona. Don't fool yourself that Charvona is suddenly a Jew lover. No, that doesn't exist. Charvona is someone who read the political map, felt the balance, and he went in a certain way because he thinks now it's better for him. Even he, in politics, it's a positive thing. It's a positive thing. In other words, sometimes in politics, you're going to have to do things you don't really, an opportunistic kind of thing, for future gains. That is not asur. It's not frowned upon. It is frowned upon if it's in interpersonal relationships. That's what we do. If a man and wife act this way, throw them out. This is nuts. You can't do that. Or interpersonal, it's also not so good to act that way. In other words, I'm doing it for you because I realize I'll get something out of it. No, we don't act that way. That's not how you should act. One another, there should be real love. There should be real giving, full-hearted giving. But to think that projects into the world of politics is a mistake. You can't use the same morality of the interpersonal person in the realm of politics. A huge mistake is to think you have to act this way there. In other words, a good Jew, like, what's a good Jew doing in politics? You can't be there. You're going to get all dirty. You're going to have to do things for power and give and give and take and do. No, stay out of that. You can't stay pure and do that. Gam charvona zachur latov. No, in that realm, even something like that is considered a positive. We don't look at it and say, he just did it for himself. No, he's just doing it for his own good. No, he did it, and we respect the fact that at this point in time, he helped us do what we needed to do. Okay? Well, again, we'll talk about this mamash later. But just remember this point. I think it's important to say about Charvona that he's judged in history positively, even though it's clear that he's an opportunist. It's clear he has no love for the Jews. Okay? So, all right. So what does the king do? So they kill Haman. Let's go on to chapter 8. Bayomahu, that day, the king Achashverosh gives Esther the house of Haman, Sorer HaYehudim, right? The one who caused trouble for the Jews, Mordechai came before the king because Esther said, told what he is to her, which is an interesting statement. Mahula, what he is to her, which we're still not 100% sure what exactly he is to her, as Chazal have all kinds of opinions what he was to her, but she says what her cousin, her benefactor. So the king takes his ring that he took from Haman and he gives to Mordechai. And Esther puts Mordechai on the house of Haman. We have to stop here, which is fascinating because the next pasuk happens 3 months from now. Yeah, the next pasuk is 3 months from now. It's not now. We're going to see that when we get there. We'll see how it's actually 3 months. It's in Sivan. 2 months from now. So what does he do? The king, lichora, it seems to be that the king loves the Jews now, right? He takes the queen, the tabat that he took from Haman, and he puts it on Mordechai. And they give him the house of Haman. Oh, we love the Jews now. The king isn't doing this because he loves the Jews. Not even because he loves Esther. He's doing this to denigrate Haman's memory. Listen to what he does, right? He takes the king. You could see him, see the king saying, you wanted to kill Mordechai? Look what I'm doing to him. And not only did I kill him, I'm taking the guy he wanted to kill and making him in his place. I'm shoving him into the dirt. What does this remind us of? I'm saying, well, it reminds us of something important.
Sell the power like a dust.
Well,
Push her down.
Initial party. Okay, it's pushing him down, but it's reminding us of something not so clearly reminding. When Haman sent out his decree, right? I'll read his decree. When Haman sent out the decree, it's an interesting statement. He says, right, in his decree, he goes like this. Lashmid right b'chodesh echad. Lashmid la'rogu la'abed et kol ha'Yehudim, from young to old, from babies to women, in one day, and to take their possessions. Now, if you're going to kill them all, what does it matter that you're taking their possessions? I mean, there's no one left. They're all dead. What does it matter to take their possessions? Like, what is that? Why is that so horrible? If I say, I shot him and I took his shirt, I mean, is that such a horrible thing? It's you shot him. What are you talking about his shirt about? I knocked him out and I took his house.
But it incentivizes people to do it.
So first of all, it definitely incentivizes people to do it. But there's also more to that. Our possessions, our birthright in a sense, is very important to us. There's a very famous story in Melachim, in Sefer Melachim, when Achav, the king Achav, Navot, that's his neighbor. Neighbor's name is Navot. And his neighbor has a vineyard that Achav really wants. He wants this vineyard. And he goes to Achav, and he goes to Navot, Achav, the king of Israel, goes to, Israel's divided into two countries, and he goes to him, he says, sell me your vineyard. And he goes, over my dead body, pretty much. He says, it's my father's and my father's father's, and I'm never going to sell it to you. So you guys have to read the story because it's just amazing. He goes home and he pouts. He really pouts. He sits there and he doesn't eat. And his wonderful wife, Izebel, who is, as her name states, Izebel is there's a garbage aspect to it. Zevel, garbage, but that's not really. It's really after a god. But she's a very cruel lady, and she says to him, you know what, Achav, sweetie, you eat and drink. I'll take care of this, and she does. And she kills Navot, and he gets the vineyard. And when Eliyahu Hanavi comes to rebuke him, he says a very, very famous statement. He says, "Haratzachta v'gam yarashta." You both murdered Navot, had him murdered, and you inherited. You took his vineyard. Now, he murdered him. What does it matter that he inherited his thing? What could be worse? Okay, you murdered him and you inherited it. You murdered him. That's enough. I don't need that you inherited. What's so horrible about the inheritance? It's like you can't. How can you compare anything to murder? And there is a way. It actually is, because when man dies, he leaves something of himself in this world. There are important things he leaves in this world. It's an interesting thing to think about. Your children, your novel that you wrote, your idea that you put out, your song that you made, right? Your household, and what you stand for. It's part of immortality that man feels. That I left something. That's why, in a sense, children are really, really what makes us immortal in that sense. The hisharut nefesh, the fact that our soul, we know that our soul exists after we die. But in this world, we also leave our marks. And that's important. It's important to someone. When you want to completely degrade someone, when you want to completely destroy them, and destroy their will and their power, you say to them, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to take your women, and I'm going to take your house, and I'm going to live there in your house after you're dead. Sometimes that's more painful for the man than just saying, I'm going to kill you. No, kill me, but leave who I am, leave what I am. The king here is erasing Haman. This is what he's doing. Now, you have to understand, giving Mordechai the ring is saying to Haman, even after he's dead, it's saying, you are gone. Erased. I'm giving your house to Mordechai.
He's
right?
basically taking revenge on
on Haman. But why is this so important to understand? Because at first, when you first read these psukim, you say, oh, the king loves the Jews now. He has Esther and he loves the Jews. Don't make that mistake. That's why I'm emphasizing this. He's not doing this to save the Jews, per se. He doesn't love the Jews. He loves his wife. He may be a little scared of her already. We'll see that in a second, how he's more scared than just a little bit. At Mordechai, Esther, well, also notice, Esther gives the house of Haman to Mordechai, not the king, even though the king must have allowed it. There is no decree that everyone has to bow down to Mordechai anymore, remember, okay? So the house of Haman isn't necessarily his position in the same way. In other words, he has the ring, but again, the ring is given as a insult, as a slight to Haman. Okay, we don't see Mordechai wielding the ring all over the place in the second. No. Apparently the king is not making the same mistake twice. Okay.
Wow. The king is getting persuaded to kill a lot of people.
The king. That's what we said. Achashverosh is. Remember we said in the very beginning that he's a wise man or a stupid man. I said that he's both.
Yeah.
He's both because he's not stupid on the regular level. His stupidity is in that that emotional insecurity of his having to always rule is what everyone moves him around on. Right? That's how.
I'm not sure if I told you, but I remember having a discussion about whether or not Achashverosh is dumb or smart. And one of the reasons why he was smart is because he has 127 provinces. Like, he knows what he's doing. He wouldn't control 127 provinces if he didn't know what he's doing.
Exactly.
One reason why he's dumb is because he's killing a lot of people for no legit reason for him.
So that's not, I don't think that's tipesh. That's not what the tipesh, again, the tipshut in my mind is not that he kills people, it's that he can be maneuvered, manipulated. That's his stupidity. That's interesting. When people have a character trait, right. When someone has a character trait that is unrestrained, then he is, in a sense, he's a stupid person. He's someone who can be, by smart people, he can be manipulated very, very easily. That's why he's stupid. That's what we talked about in the past. Let's get back.
This extra animosity towards Haman is because Haman had reached such a high level of trust.
Of course, and now he stabbed him in the back, and for all Achashverosh understood, in whatever, through his wife, through killing her, through killing him, through all the things we said that he made him think. So now, lich ora, the next pasuk we should see is what? If you guys had to write the Megillah, if you had to write the story, what would be the next verse in the Megillah? Everyone, Esther is the queen. Mordechai replaced Haman.
So what are his successes? What did he do?
What's the first thing he's going to do? obviously is stop the decree, right? Of course. I mean, the Barur, that's what's going to happen, right? The whole story is about that. Mordechai managed, both Mordechai and Esther, each in his own way. Mordechai by not letting people be quiet and yelling out the tzarot, yelling out that Am Yisrael were in danger and showing, making it a political show of it. And Esther, through her maneuvering, they have gotten to the position where they're in the position to save the Jews. But then suddenly we have verse 3. Vatosef Esther. Additionally, Esther came and spoke before the king and fell before his legs. And she cried and begged to remove the evil that Haman the Agagite, and his evil thoughts that he thought of the Jews. Huh? What? First of all, the verbs, begged, cried, fell at his feet. I don't know, go tell, all the Jews are in the power. They're the pinnacle of power here. There's the king and 2 Jews. That's the pinnacle of power. Why is this such a ordeal? And let me just read to you when this happens, okay? Just take a look when this happens, because they got a couple psukim later. Look at pasuk tet, okay? Verse 9. Vayikaru sofrei hamelech ba'et hahi. And this time they're going to send out the books, right? It was read before the scribes. And this time, b'chodesh hashlishi, the 3rd month, in the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day of Sivan. This is 2 months and a week, pretty much, after the story after Haman was hanged. He was hanged on Nisan, right? The whole story happens in 3 to 5 days. The 3-day fast, the first day of the banquet, and the second day of the banquet, and then they kill Haman at the second day of the banquet, right? So it's 5 days that start on the 13th of Nisan, ends on Yud Chet Nisan. This is Kaf Gimel Sivan. That is exactly 2 months and a week from then.
He died on the 16th of Nisan.
He dies on...
I thought it was the 17th.
He dies on 5 days after the 13th. So it's either the 17th or the 18th, somewhere around there.
Okay.
It's a good day. Whatever day he dies on was a good day. But when he's gone, Haman's gone, what happens in these 2 months? Where do they go? What's going on here? And what's happening here is Esther and Mordechai realize
that the decree has not been taken off.
That the decree hasn't been taken off, and the king isn't really doing anything about it, even though Esther has told him that her nation is in danger. Nothing is moving. And Esther has to go and fall before him. And just so we're not confused, it's sort of a replay of the previous time, because the scepter comes into play again. Look at the continuation. But in verse 4, the king, Vayoshet HaMelech leEsther Sharvita Zahav. He again puts out the Sharvita Zahav, the scepter, just as he did the first time. And Esther gets up and stands before the king. But if we read these verses very carefully, there are 2 very interesting, at least 2, things that change what happens here and what happened there. First of all, why does he put out the scepter in chapter 5? Why does he put out the scepter? It says...
The reason why is because basically he made a decree that anyone who comes in without being ordered...
No, that's why she's not dead. But why does he give her the thing?
Because he finds favor in her eyes.
Exactly. She finds favor in his eyes. Very good.
And here, that doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. It's an interesting term. Again, very good, Ezra. Right? This is verse 2 in chapter 5. As the king saw Esther standing in the courtyard, she found favor in his eyes. Remember who finds favor in the king's eyes? Do you remember who?
Who's not a challenger.
No challenger. We said 3 days, she looks like a shmata. She is 3-day fast, right? We're after 1 day fast, we look like a shmata. She's after 3 days, no eating, no drinking, day, night, davening, praying for Hashem that this will be complete.
Day in the day.
That is exactly why. Suddenly, Esther has become a player in the game.
She looks healthy.
He doesn't like this. This is not something he enjoys. Lo matzah chen be'enav. There's no matzah chen be'enav in this case. She's a shmata here too, but her shmatayut is not the same thing.
She had just set up She had set up parties. She had put this manipulation, supposedly.
She is moving ahead. Esther is moving ahead. She is now Queen Esther. Okay.
And
Now the king. Look what's very, very interesting. Suddenly, she really is called Esther in this case. Look what it says, right? Since chapter 8, ותשם אסתר את מרדכי על בית המן, ותוסף אסתר ותדבר לפני המלך, ויושת המלך לאסתר את שרביט הזהב, ותקום אסתר. Where's the Malka? She's always called Esther HaMalka. Look, even in verse 7. ויאמר המלך אחשוורוש אסתר HaMalka. And again, that's what she's usually called, right? We'll see again. Keep on going, right?
so where's the Malka?
So where in this little place, we're meeting Esther. Suddenly, who is this lady? Who is she? She was Esther HaMalka. She was my, just a nice face. Suddenly, she exists. She's her own woman, Esther. Not only as Esther HaMalka, she's Esther. She's going to return as Esther HaMalka. The king's going to say Esther HaMalka, but this is already a new Esther HaMalka. Until now, she was just Esther HaMalka because I'm the Melech. Now, suddenly, she has gone through a revival. She has returned to be Esther. And she has her own say. And she has her own opinion. And she has she has some things she wants to get done.
She has also her own people.
And she has her own people suddenly. She's Esther Yudia suddenly. Right?
Ahasuerus was also afraid of Vashti's kingdom.
For sure. She was afraid of Vashti's power, right? That comes from the faith. Suddenly Esther she's not just a nobody. She's a person with a nation and a family, right?
And
Mordechai.
also the king, she reveals to the king that she's also from King Saul.
According to Midrash, that she's from Shaul, right? She's from Kish. She's
She never says
she's
that
a-
though.
She revealed her what Mordechai is to her.
And so Mordechai, we know, comes from there. In other words, she suddenly, right, it was black and white until now. Suddenly it's color. She's in color suddenly. It's like she's an actual person who has an opinion and wants things. She has things that she wants and things that. Anyway, this coming to the king, even though she's crying and she's before him, it is not in the same position of powerlessness that she was before. Now she's coming and crying. But it's interesting, when she puts out the scepter, what happens? In the first place, she touches the scepter, right? In the first one. No touching the scepter. She gets up. V'ta'amod Esther, right? Right? Sorry, I'm in the wrong chapter, right? She goes and v'ta'amod lifnei, v'takom Esther v'ta'amod lifnei hamelech. She gets up and she stands before the king. Right? There, she approaches the king and touches the scepter. It is not the same description. There's a description here of standing before the king. And the king recognizes, oh my gosh, here we go again. Here we go again. But what does he do now? Because he knows, this is what's fascinating here. He knows that Mordechai and Esther really are looking out for him. It's not the same game as before. It's not that no one knows. This is power from people who have proved their allegiance. If I shoot them down,
Then I have no protection.
I have no protection. I'm more in danger. The power Esther is portraying to the king here is one, again, where the king has been maneuvered into another position that he doesn't know what to do. If he kills her, if he gets rid of her, gets rid of the threat, oh my gosh, he's going to go through the whole thing again. What are people going to say? How is he going to explain this? Killing Haman, killing Mordechai. You can't, even as a king, you can't do this and expect to survive the year. You're going to have to trust someone at some point. Is it worthwhile trusting his queen, who until this day has been proven trustworthy, and her uncle, who has been proven trustworthy, or not? They've maneuvered him into the place through their goodness and understanding the situation. They're forcing his hand. And they realize he has to, but why hasn't he done anything until now? And this is the interesting thing. Why hasn't he done anything until now? Why hasn't it clicked? Why until now? That's a big question. Why hasn't he done it? So his terutz, right? His excuse is that, I sent out letters. Oh, things that have been signed by the kingly seal can't be returned. You know what? It may be a law, but come on, man. The guy it's his empire. He could, be smart, do something else. No. Something is not making him move. Again, he has known that they're in danger. The Jews are in danger. He knows that Esther begged for it before. Remember in chapter 7, Ani ve'ami, mikarnu ani ve'ami. So he solved the ani problem, the me problem, but he hasn't solved my nation's problem. And he's not doing anything about it. So I want to say 2 points. 2 options, at least. 3 options. One, the easiest to say is that he hated the Jews. Okay? Chazal have definitely statements of this. We can go that way. It works. He hates the Jews and he loves his queen. Just like I said, there's always the Jew that you like. Right? There's always the Jew. You have to remember, throughout anti-Semitism, I hate Jews, but I like him. Always. That always existed. Okay? The anti-Semite, no matter how many Jews he sees and he likes and respects, doesn't change anything about how he sees the Jews. It's just, oh, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. Tens, hundreds of Jews could be okay, but the Jews are horrible. Okay, it's real when I'm saying these things. Anti-Semitism is illogical and doesn't work through rational thought. Okay, the fact that every Jew you've seen has been a good Jew doesn't change an iota in what you believe in. It is a problem in anti-Semitism, which is almost a sickness. That's one explanation. It works. It's fine. Let's go on to other explanations. Another explanation is, and this one.
Maybe he wanted to look what Esther and Mordechai do with their new power from the position. Maybe he wants to test them, like their allegiance to him.
And how would that prove one way or another what they do? What would they do that would prove or not prove? If they prove to be loyal, then I'll go ahead.
Right. And
okay.
Not, then they're in trouble.
It could be, but it seems that they don't think that. They have to go and beg, right? Esther has to go and beg. In other words, the king is not from the Megillah. He's not moving. I think that would fit if it was a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. After 2 months, they feel, at least from their eyes, it's not moving fast enough. Okay, so it could be all right. Maybe the king needed another month, another year, another 2 years. Then all the Jews would be dead already. But whatever, he needed some more. No, there's no time, right? Remember, there's no time. The Gzeira is in 10 months, 8 months, 9 months. So it's danger.
He's more concerned about his image than if he will flip-flop on something.
Yeah, fair. So I think that's one direction. Okay, another direction is, listen, I had a queen, I got rid of the queen. I had a counselor, I got rid of the counselor.
Make a decree.
If I made a decree and I take another decree, come on, that'll already be a joke. I'm already maybe a joke. But how much of a joke am I willing to be? And again, I'm not willing to be a joke, and I don't care. Isn't this thinking, right? That a whole nation is annihilated. But I won't be. Yeah, to save face.
So is that why some people say Ahasuerus wasn't really such a good person because he didn't take off the decree for the Jews? Yeah, that's not such a good person. He was also thinking like he might hate the Jews and everything.
Well, according to this explanation, we just had 2 explanations. There's 2 explanations. One is that he hated the Jews. The other, as Ariel said, and what we said before, he's impartial. He doesn't care either way. The only thing he cares about
power, and he's scared by that. And so he's overreacting.
Well, now he's going to save. I'm asking before Esther, why didn't he until now? In other words, she asked him to do something, right? He said, I'm going to give you half the kingdom, whatever you want. Oh, but suddenly she asked for something and he's not doing it. Why not? So again, we said one is anti-Semitism, one was what Ariel was saying, and that is, again, he is always looking what's good for him. This is the king. So it was good for him to kill Haman, both on a personal level and saving his queen, because she was in danger.
But that's the situation with Vashti, right? Like when he let her come, but was without counsel with her. It was like, I wanted you to be here, just come, you don't come. But that's like not how it works in a real relationship, right? I think.
It's not it's not a good relationship. What happens there? Yeah. The way we explained it there also.
And also like what they say, like that. I don't know if it's true, but they say like they want to see her naked or something.
Right. So when we learned that, when was not the good marital relations but going on there, but also what we said when we explained there, really he was looking for himself. In other words, he was bringing her to show her just as a pretty wife and not as a powerful queen, which she was. In other words, he was always trying to consolidate his own power.
He's like a narcissist, you can say.
Yes, very much so. Yes, as apparently all emperors are in some way, because otherwise, why do you think you can rule the whole world? But you have to have, no, I'm serious, you have to have a certain amount of narcissism in you to think that I can rule the whole world. Like, who are you? How?
Like Napoleon.
Correct. Like all.
Literally.
What, an idiot?
Yeah.
He was not an idiot. Oh my gosh.
But
Napoleon.
later on,
He
he was...
facilitated Jewish assimilation.
He may be a machshemol. We're not. I'm not giving a. But you don't underestimate these people. That's what I'm saying about Achashverosh from the beginning.
In the winter.
One second. Don't underestimate these men.
Everybody wants
That
to
was
be
the
king.
dumbest
Nobody
thing.
Right. These people are geniuses in what they do. They're geniuses. They're wise. Of course, you have to continuously protect yourself and protect your back. These are people.
The last name is because of Napoleon.
What?
That they have a last name now is because of Napoleon.
The last name of what?
Like some people have a last name, right?
Of Napoleon.
He was the one who said that people have to.
Have to have last names. Well, he's done. He changed the whole Europe. I mean, let's go. Right, we're tangenting here for sure. These people are great people, and great meaning they have great spirit. We talked about this in the beginning of the Megillah. Great spirit. In other words, they want to do great things. These are great men. That's what you say. Great men are not necessarily moral. They're not necessarily what we'd call good. But they're great, but not good in that sense. And so again, here Achashverosh is only thinking of his power, and he's saying, "Listen, I flip this thing. There's a limit to how many things I'm going to flip. I'm sorry. It's really unfortunate that your whole nation is going to be killed." But I'm looking out for number one.
He would look gullible. Everyone who has his ear listens to
him. Yeah, him, then you, then them, then you. No. That's the second explanation, the way we could explain it. There's a third way to explain. And the third way to explain is that he was convinced with what Haman said.
Yeah.
Okay, he's not an anti-Semite per se, but he beholds the Jews as the threat. Remember, Haman was very... you guys remember how convincing Haman was when we learned his statement? He was convincing, right? It was an interesting historic anomaly.
Haman's not an anti-Semite?
Haman is an anti-Semite. Achashverosh is not an anti-Semite, but he was convinced by Haman of the danger the Jews pose. Now, he's not sure even that they're really going to attack him at this moment. But you have to remember, the Jews, being a nation dispersed among other nations and keeping their identity, is unheard of in this time and age. It's unheard of. There's something strange about these people who are keeping to themselves, not doing what everyone else does. There's something freaky about them. There's something scary about them. They're weird. So in a sense, it's not anti-Semitism that I hate them for their religion, they're just weird, and they could be a danger if there's going to be some kind of revolt. They are the spark that they could light everyone at the same time. Right? We said other places could revolt and then try to bring one person in, and probably the nations around them. But the Jews, with this network, press a button and bombs explode in the 127. He may have been convinced that the Jews are still a threat. He hasn't lost that.
Well, I mean,
After all, his wife, he didn't even know was a Jew. His top advisor, he didn't even know was a Jew. Look how sneaky they could be.
No, it's right. Even in the
They were in his house. He didn't even know.
even in the palace, they could be getting.
Esther didn't tell you who she was, and like maybe she might have been planning this whole entire time.
Yeah, there you go. She was
Like,
planning.
Close they got to.
Granted, yes, he was a threat and everything and all to them, but at the same time, it kind of revealed what they were doing a lot of times, and they didn't reveal what it was for. And so Achashverosh might have thought it's probably to kill me.
He might have in this sense, but not. But it seems to be, and we don't see this in any other point. He doesn't mistrust Esther or Mordechai from now on, right? There was a time that one night there was mistrust, but she set that straight. He doesn't mistrust them. It seems that he believes them, and then you get to this situation of okay, you're good and they're not good. In the same what we talked about anti-Semitism. In other words, okay, and now Mordechai and Esther understand that the way to convince the king is to show the king that it's worth his while. That's what they have to do. That it's worth his while. This is what they're going to have to do. Show him that it's worth his while to do this. And Esther, through different statements, sort of pushes him into a corner. She talks a lot here, right? Look what goes on. Okay? So after she begged, right? If it's good in verse 5, if it's good for the king, and if I found favor in his, v'kasher hadavar lifnei hamelech v'tovan. She has 4 statements here. If it's good before the king, and if I have found favor in him, and it is kosher. It's a very interesting statement. Kasher hadavar lifnei hamelech. It's kosher in front of the king, and I am good in his eyes, which he said lichora. She said that before already. May it be written to return the books of Haman that he said that he sought to kill the Jews and all the Medinot. And then she goes on. In verse 6, she's not done. Ki eichecha uchal v'ra'iti. How can I see the evil that will befall my nation? Ve'eichecha uchal v'ra'iti. And how can I see the destruction of my birthright, or my birthplace, or my birth nation, or whatever moladati, however we explain, whatever that means. Right?
Sorry. So here it's no longer her enter nation. She is the one watching as the nation. Right? It's no longer a me.
Right. She already has, she's been saved.
Yeah.
Now it's just her nation. Now it's just the nation. That's the nation is the point, right? Even though when she tries to convince him, it's always sort of personal, right? How could I, if I found favor? But she does add another thing. She says, kasher hadavar lifnei hamelech. This is a light of let's call it morality in the world, okay? If this is kosher. Now, kosher is a strange word here, okay? Kasher, it's a strange word here, it's a strange word bichlal. Kasher hadavar lifnei hamelech. It is a right thing to do, is what she's saying to him. Kasher hadavar. This is the right thing to do, and this you have to, and we also have to understand that even tyrannical dictators realize that it really helps them to look good. It helps their case to look good. To be a crazy butcher, it helps, it works for a certain time. But you're raising enemy after enemy after enemy. It doesn't hurt for the cameras to bring some poor kid and say, look what I did for him. Let's go to a hospital and cut the ribbon. It doesn't hurt. Even if you are a maniac, it doesn't hurt to have good press. And Esther throws in here, listen, She says a whole bunch of things. Some of them we talked about the personal stating her and her and her. And she doesn't want for her to be sad and her not to be. And again, there's a threat hinted here also about the her, right? You don't want me to be so hurt here, right, King? You don't want me to be unhappy. I'm in your house. My uncle is the thing. You don't want me to... Right, my cousin, uncle, whatever. There's something in which she puts herself in the position, but now it's not the same one as before. Now it's, you don't want me to be so upset with you, but I'm already a political player. She's already changed, right? She's already Esther. She's not just a nobody. She is already someone. But I want to just one more thing about the kasher. Okay, the kasher part, the kasher hadavar, right? The kasher hadavar lifnei hamelech. The thing itself, she's saying it should be kosher in your eyes, because this is doing something right. To save the Jews who are being killed for really no reason. Again, the king may have been convinced by Haman, maybe not. But Esther is pointing out, you come out better in the long run. If you could say, taking back an edict that was evil and immoral, you're going to get points. At the end of the day, you'll get points, king. She's trying to convince him about this. She's trying to show him different points of view why it's worth his while to do. And the king gets convinced. Sort of interesting. The king gets convinced that it's worth his while. Look at the verse 7. Vayomer HaMelech Achashverosh Esther HaMalka, she's a queen again, uleMordechai HaYehudi. Hine bet Haman natati leEsther. I gave Esther the house, Haman's house. V'oto talu al ha'etz al asher shalach yado b'Yehudim. This verse, this is genius here. She's managed to convince him to change the narrative. Remember we talked about spins? Remember at first we said, why did he give Haman's house to Mordechai? To the great Haman. You know what he says now? I gave it to Al Asher Shalach Yado Yehudim. I gave it because he was threatening the Jews. Yeah, right. Okay. If that's what you want to say, that's okay now. But they've sort of forced his hand and they've convinced him to say, you know what? Why not get some political gain out of this whole thing? It seemed like it was all politics there, right? I killed Haman, he was threatening me, it was all me. Hey, no, you know why I really killed Haman? Because he was endangering the poor Jews. That's what he says. Suddenly the king says a different statement. Asher, right? Al asher shalach liyado b'Yehudim. Because he wanted to kill the Jews. That's not why he gave it to him. That's not what it said before. He didn't say that before. I'm giving you them because he endangered the Jews. No. He's rewriting the script. Achashverosh, understanding Esther's statement that it is kasher. It's a good idea to come out good. He's changed the story. The story has changed. Now he did it because Haman was an immoral man, and he wanted to start it to right the ship. And then, once he's now convinced himself of his righteousness, he can think of another idea. So he's not willing to go the whole mile, and he's not willing to take back the letters, but he is willing to think, which he hasn't done for 2 months, right? You have to remember, this idea that he's about to say now would not have happened had not Esther gone again and fallen at his feet. It wouldn't have happened, and not sort of bullied him into understanding that he has to go another step. But now that he's there, suddenly he can think. V'atem kitvu al haYehudim katov b'einechem. B'shem hamelech v'chitmu b'tavat hamelech. The Malbim goes through, he writes a whole song of praise to Achashverosh here. How he's really smart, and he's saying, do like this, and then it will work. So the Malbim, we said, we feel a little too good to the king, right? Throughout the whole Perush, he's like always got the king's back. It's fascinating in his Perush. Most Perushim, most commentaries kill the king. The Malbim is unique in how much he's always protecting the king. He didn't know, he was okay, he wouldn't have done it, he would have done. Here too, he says, no, the king is giving him these great legal ideas of how to get around the system and save it, okay? So I don't know how far we have to go, but the king is taking initiative, he's taking his own initiative to explain what can be done. But he gives the boundaries, and he says, listen, do whatever you want, right? Write whatever you want. Ketov be'enechem. Atem kitvu. Write about the Jews or about the Jews. Whatever you want. What's good in your eyes. And sign it with the king's ring. But then he says, Kichtav asher nichtav v'shem hamelech v'nichtom b'tavat hamelech en la'ashiv. In a sense, it should have been aval. It says ki, right? Because it usually says ki ktav, right? So the key is a little strange here, even though the key can be many different. There are different ways you could read the word key, but he says, although, or but, what I wrote cannot be brought back. But it's a very cryptic statement. In other words, he says, write whatever you want, because what's written can't be brought back. Which letters is he talking about?
Letter of Haman sent. Because it was signed with the
But in this pasuk, what's he talking about? What about your writing? What are you about to write, right?
Yeah,
it's a really interesting pasuk, right? We automatically read it like Ezra said, right? You automatically read, write the letters, whatever you want, because unfortunately, the other letters I can't bring back, the letters that say to kill the Jews, so, give an alternative or write something else, which is really what happens. But in the pasuk itself, it's not clear what he's talking about.
Saying what you're writing.
Exactly, that's the pshat, right? That's the pshat of the pasuk. Vatem kitvu al Yehudim, you write about the Jews as you seem fit in the name of the king and sign it with the king's ring, because whatever is written in the name of the king and signed by the king can't be brought back. Isn't that the pshat?
You could mean both.
So basically, he's saying is that because the letter to kill the Jews was written and signed by the king's ring, and then there's another letter that says the Jews can defend themselves.
Well, he doesn't know what they're going to say. He says, write whatever you want. He doesn't say.
Right.
He doesn't know what's going to be written in these letters.
But we know it's written in a letter, and because the letter is going to be written, the Jews can defend themselves, it can be brought back, and everything and all, and that's why.
I think what he's saying there is a hint to the previous letters, but he's also saying, listen, you can write something now.
Don't make me look.
I don't know, don't make me look good. He's saying, you can write something now, but what you send out, be careful.
Yeah, right.
Because it can't come back. In other words, you think tov when you're writing what you write down. Write whatever you want. That's what he says. Write whatever you want. He doesn't say, write this, write that. Tov benechem. Whatever you want. Just be careful. Because what you send out cannot come back. He's giving them the parameters of how the Persian government works. Saying, listen, I'm not willing for these letters to come back. That I'm not willing. Write whatever you want. But I'm not willing for them to come back. Your letters or his letters. Now there are two parallel letters out there. One says one thing, and one says the other thing. And who's going to win? This is what all chapter 8 is about. That we'll see Be'ezrat Hashem after the thing, the continuation of chapter 8 and the beginning of chapter 9 are going to be how Mordechai manages for one letter to be read as opposed to the other. How one letter is going to be the letter that wins as opposed to the other. They're both out there now. One doesn't have a head, in a sense. Haman's dead. But the letters are out in 127 countries. We have to remember, if we don't go by the Malbim, okay, we'll leave the Malbim for a minute, who says no one knows what's going on. These letters are out. I'm going to give a different alternative reality for a second. Once these letters went out, and everyone knows the Jews are going to be killed, you have to see, right? You have to see the situation. All the anti-Semites are sharpening their knives, right? They go by the Jews every day. They say, one day less. And they say what we said. You and your wife and your children and your house, it's mine. The fear, the intimidation, the Jews are under a threat that there's no way out of. And it's a whole year. It's a solid year almost. It's 11 months. They are under this threat. Now, it's very interesting, and this is the point. I'm just bringing this is all akdama. This is all a preview for the next lesson, which will be after Purim, but Bezrat Hashem. How is this going to happen? Is this going to be a pogrom? Is this are the heads of the armies? Who's supposed to kill the Jews here? In Haman's plan, original plan, who was supposed to kill the Jews? Was it a state organized pogrom? Was it a state silence pogrom? In other words, go do whatever you want. The police will just watch, which happens so often in our history. What exactly was Haman's? Who was supposed to do the work, the dirty work? Who was supposed to kill the king, the Jews? It's an interesting question that we'll have to go back to the original decree and see what happens there. Because it's going to be important to see how Mordechai counters this. Both in the letters he writes, and more importantly in the letter he writes, in proving to the 127 countries that it's not going to be worth their while to side with the anti-Semites. That's really what his main job is going to be from now on. And we'll see how he does in 6 stages. There are 6 stages that Mordechai manages to sway the public opinion, because he swayed the king. And Charvona, who's close to the king, knows we have to talk about there are nations way, way far away from here, that in this year they're not going to be able to really understand the switch of power so much. How are they going to be convinced there also to save all the Jews? I mean, he may persuade the nations around them to do something, but every Jew is in danger in the whole empire. How is he going to change that? That is Hashem.
Zaku Baruch.
Zaku Baruch.